21st Platoon. Hard drop. Secure our landing zone.
Understood.
Over the target in 5.
Hang on to your helmet.
Welcome back, recruits. We are on another episode of From ODST to Helldiver, and today we are going to be discussing weapons. Now, this video is not going to be a deep dive into each and every weapon, and it's absolutely not going to be a deep dive even into the different types of weapons. What this video specifically is going to be talking about is weapon handling and a couple of things that affect it, as well as a lot of weapon customization. With that little intro out of the way, let's go ahead and dive on in. Okay, so while we are here on the ship, see the mission areas right there. But over here in your ship, there is an armory. And I do want to talk about this because as soon as you load in the game, you can access the armory, I'm pretty sure. And you can see from here, you can pretty much access your loadout with these first two tabs. One of them being your armor, helmet and cape. This one being your primary, secondary, and throwable weapons. Now, in the primary weapons, you can see I've got quite a few things unlocked, but you can see we have a couple of different stats for each weapon. Again, I don't want to deep dive into all their different stats. We also have weapon traits as well, and lots of these different weapons have quite a few different traits. And I will dive into a couple of those in this video. But the main thing that I want to discuss, as you've probably noticed, each of these weapons has a different level. So we look here at the Liberator Carbine, which I only have at level 1. We can open it up by clicking the left stick to customize it. And you can already see a couple of different weapon customizations. And this customization only affects the primary weapons here for the time being. Now, there may be an update in the future that allows customization of secondary weapons, but for now it is stuck with just the primaries. And you can see there are all sorts of different upgrades that you can get that will affect the new stats that you're going to see for the weapon. You also are going to see a recoil simulation, which is pretty much the bullet spread trajectory, where it's anticipating the spread to go, which is a bit interesting. And you'll notice that these weapon attachments or upgrades are locked behind a level. Your weapons that you have will have an experience bar, and you can actually see that right now near the middle of the screen underneath the words Liberator Carbine, level 1 out of 25. You can see that is actually an experience bar, and this thing is almost level 2 right now. So as you progress through the game, after you complete a mission, if you have a specific weapon equipped, it will gain the experience from the mission, similar to how your character will gain experience. And once you level up enough, you'll be able to start unlocking some of these upgrades. Now, the upgrades themselves are going to cost you requisition slips, which is the yellow currency at the top of the screen. I currently have 22,000 and some change. It's a very common thing to gain while you're playing the game. You will probably reach the maximum allowed. The max capacity for rec is 50,000. If you're consistently playing and you're not paying too much attention, you're probably going to max that out fairly quickly. So if you do, just check a couple of things. There are definitely lots of ways to spin the recs. Weapon upgrades is one of them. So once I'm done, I can save that. And now I'm going to open up the AR-23 Liberator because I have it leveled max out to level 25. And you can see all the different things we can do here. And ergonomics is actually a pretty important attribute. It's basically the gun sway. When you look around, it's going to affect how quickly the gun lines up to where your cursor is. You also see you've got a horizontal and vertical recoil. You have a sway, which I think goes in tandem with ergonomics. You have a capacity, number of magazines, and the amount of time it takes to reload. Lots of different things, and all of these weapons have quite a few upgrades that you can do. And some of them are going to be a little bit unique, like the explosive crossbow. It's just going to be the reflex sights, or it's going to be the optics, the scope. There's not a different magazine or anything like that. It's going to fire explosive crossbow bolts. So this is the only customization we have at the moment. There may be an update in the future that adds more customization, but for the time being, this is it. Additionally, if you hit the bumper under customization, you can see that there are different patterns that you can throw over each individual weapon. And as you can see here, I have a pattern available for unlocking, but I haven't purchased it yet with the rec. So you will see a price tag once you've crossed that level threshold, but I haven't bought it yet. You will see that it is available for purchase. I'm going to go ahead and purchase it now, and now I have the desert skin for the exploding crossbow. Additionally, as you can see here, you can cycle through different configurations. So for instance, if I wanted the red tube dot to be 2 and then the reflex sight MK2 to be 3, I could do that, and I could even change the skin. And then when I am here, I can just cycle through this pretty quickly and decide which one I'm going to want based off the weapon config cycling, which is pretty nice. But we are not really trying to get into any of that right now. That's a bit of an in-depth thing. You will be able to customize your own weapons and get a feel for them yourself. I highly recommend that you play around with the things, get different customizations, and see how it affects you in-game. You won't really know what you like until you go about doing that. Speaking of which, we are now going to go ahead and hop into game to go over a couple other weapon configurations that we can do only in-game. Alright guys, we have just dropped into the game. I have the Liberator in my hand, which is the starting weapon for all new recruits. And if I hold the X button, you can see I have different fire modes for the Liberator. Right now, it is set to auto mode, so if I hold the trigger down, there it goes. If I switch over to semi, and I hold the trigger down, it's only going to fire one bullet every time I pull the trigger. And then last, there's the burst functionality, and fans of the BR rejoice. This is exactly what you think it is. Every time you pull the trigger, you're going to get a burst of fire. 2 or 3 bullets are going to fire out. Pretty nice. It essentially makes it the battle rifle. You will also notice, even though I still had bullets left over in the magazine, when I went ahead and reloaded, it discarded all extra ammo from that clip, and now all I have is a number of backup things. So it is fairly realistic in that regard, where you will discard ammo if you reload kind of crazy like. So there are a couple other features that I do want to go over while you're out and about with your guns. So, if I am, and I may need some more ammo for this, if I am just standing here and hip firing, the gun's going to do something like this. And you will notice there was quite a bit of recoil there. If I hold the left trigger, I can get a more iron sights approach. You see the recoil is much less. And then, if I further, after holding the left trigger, click the right thumbstick, you can see that I actually am using the first-person scope of the gun, and there's slightly even less recoil there. Now there is a setting in the game where when you do this, the left trigger, it will remember if you were scoped or not, and automatically go back to that. I have that setting turned off, probably because I've played the game quite a bit with that setting not on, and it felt very disorienting when I threw it back on, or turned it off. Very strange indeed. You guys may want to toy around with the settings before you get too comfortable with them, just in case you prefer that method instead. Now, what I just showed you was me standing perfectly still. Now what happens if I'm walking and do some hip fire? It's a bit crazy. Say I'm walking, not sprinting, and I zoom in. You can see there's not much of a difference there, but if I'm sprinting, I stop sprinting. Cannot sprint while scoped. It's a bit of an impossibility with normal rifles. There is an exception to this, and wouldn't you know it, it might be the pistol. It is not. But the SMGs, however, are pretty good about this. Now, you may have also noticed as I switched to my sidearm, this particular sidearm has different firing modes as well. We have a non-guided version, which is I can just shoot all crazy like into the wind, just like a normal pistol. But there's also this guided option, and essentially what this ends up doing is this little circle here, I guess rather big circle now, will automatically lock on to enemies when I go to fire. Let's see if we can find some enemies. Maybe they're out of range. This is going to lock onto them automatically and take the best shot available, which is fairly nice. This is actually a really cool feature. As you can see, it's just kind of taking those shots automatically for me. If you're a fan of the Fallout series, think pretty much this as VATS, but real time, which is super nice. But it does have some issues. I can't target that ship with this. I can only target boots on the ground, and lightly armored enemies in general. Additionally, let's say I'm trying to shoot a specific target and there's a group of them. This is really bad. It does not let you have the freedom to pick out your target, which is why this mode is optional and able to be turned off. Okay, so I wanted to cover a couple of those different things, alt-fire modes, primaries and secondaries. Additionally, we saw the recoil that I had earlier. I do want to go over what happens if you are crouched or prone. So, just to reiterate here, this is normal recoil. If I'm crouched, I have slightly better weapon handling. And if I lay down, there's even less recoil than that. So, if you want better precise shots, best bet is to lay prone. The issue is you really can't move and fire at the same time, but your accuracy is going to improve tremendously, as well as recoil being lessened. So this is great, great, great. Additionally, there are a couple of armor perks that allow for better weapon handling. So just keep all that in mind. This game does not follow the principle of Halo shooting, where wherever you aim is where it's going to be. As you can see, there's a lot of drag. The bullets are not going where I'm aiming. They are slightly behind me. That is part of the ergonomics of a weapon, and we will dive into that in just a moment with some of the heavier support weapons. So now we have the heavy machine gun, and real quick I want to show you the recoil for this monster. Even when you're crouched, it's going to have quite a bit of recoil. It's a bit crazy. Now additionally, it has pretty terrible weapon handling, and it also has stationary reload, which means it is quite a process to get this thing to reload. Additionally, it has alt-fire modes of varying RPMs, which is the speed at which you fight. So I'm going to show you a slow RPM of this. I'm just going to fire out like that. And then I'm going to show you the 750, which is about double. See, it is much faster. So if you want to conserve ammo, you can put it down. If you want to obliterate your enemies, turn it back up.
Last reload!
The heavy machine gun is a monster, but it is terrible at handling. Absolutely terrible. Alright, let's swap to another weapon to show some other interesting things you can do. So here we have the anti-material rifle, which is this game's version of the sniper rifle. And I do want to highlight something real quick, something that is a bit unique to Helldivers. The scope is not going to line up precisely where you're aiming. It has a bit of drag, and it will line up momentarily after you stop moving. Now, this does make for quite a bit of a conundrum when you have moving targets that are sprinting across. It's very hard to line those shots up, because you don't really know exactly where the bullet's going to go. So keep that all in mind as well. That is the best example I can provide of weapon drag in this game. But we do have different types of customization, specifically for the anti-material rifle, and that is the scope. You can see here, this is a much shorter scope, and it doesn't have that horrible drag. It still has some drag, but it's not quite as bad. We have 100 scope. You can see this is handedly taking these suckers out, one-shotting all of them. That is the usual state of being with the anti-material rifle. Pretty much anything in the game that's made of material is not going to do well when paired up against this. We have the 200 scope, which is where you see the crosshairs not even visible based off this drag. So just keep that in mind as well. And now we're going to go ahead and move on to the next weapon that I'd like to show some things for. So this is the last weapon that I want to showcase because it is a little bit unique. We have the flag here. And as you see, I can slightly zoom in, I can start stabbing, stab just normally. I can sprint and still stab, even though I slow down when I go to stab. This is a melee weapon. As you can imagine, there are no weapon customizations. There's no different alt fire mode or anything. But while I'm doing that, checking it, you can see that I am waving the flag, which is quite heroic and highly recommended for all new recruits. If you find me in game, ask me to drop a flag, 100% I will wield a flag in your game, and we can all salute it.
Fire in the hole.
And yes, the flag is quite deadly. Now, that's a lot of enemies, now that it's thinned out a little bit. Come here. Yeah. Flag is quite great. Now, while it lacks any alt fire modes and is a knife in a gunfight, essentially, there's one additional thing you can do. If you hold down on the D-pad, which this might change when it comes out for the Xbox, so grain of salt on this, you can choose to drop the one true flag. And when you do, you plant it.
Mission at 20 minutes remaining.
When you plant the flag, you can salute the flag. Good stuff. Alright guys, I guess there were a couple of things that I wanted to include that I forgot about. This is the flamethrower. Does not have alt fire modes or anything like that. One thing I would like to show you is that the flamethrower, while roasting your enemies, can also lay a trail of flames on the ground, and anything that walks over will be lit on fire, including yourself and your teammates. So keep that in mind as well. When firing, if you keep it up in the air, it will not hit anything on the ground, usually. And if you aim to the ground, it very much can be right below you as well. When using this type of weapon, do not fire it and move forward. You will kill yourself 100%. It's best to layer it side to side while walking backwards. That in general is going to leave a trail of flames on the ground for enemies to walk over. Very effective against bugs. I also have this weapon here, the arc thrower, that I want to show you guys. It has a charge up, and you can see now it's fully charged. When I release it, it will launch its attack, and I have to charge it back every time. As you can see. So some weapons do require a charge up. There's no alt fire methods for the arc thrower. Again, I don't want to cover every single weapon, just a couple different mechanics of weapons. So let's dive into the last little bit here before we wrap this video up. So currently I have the cookout equipped, and it is perhaps the best weapon to show you about bullet drop-off. So as you can see here, I'm aiming at the top of that tower. When I fire, you'll notice that the bullets fall quite a bit and are affected by gravity. So that is something to keep in mind as well. At short ranges like this, it's just slightly underneath where my aimer is, but at long distances, it has a very dramatic drop-off. So just keep that in mind as well. Additionally, these bullets have the effect of incendiary. If any of my enemies would survive long enough for me to show you, that means it is going to light stuff on fire. Such. See, they got lit on fire.
For prosperity!
And it also has the property of rounds reload. You'll notice every time I take a shot, it's going to reload one individual bullet at a time, and it does not expel all unused ammo, which is also pretty nice. Now, I said there were a couple of things that I forgot to mention. One of them is with laser weapons and infinite ammo / overheating. So as you can see here, it says this gun has 3 things to reload with. As I start using the laser, you're going to see that it has a charge going up, and if I just let it cool off after it's charged up and overheated a little bit, I can begin firing again. But if I just keep firing and I don't let up, it eventually gets stuck, and now it's just going to say I'm completely out. I have overcooked this round of ammunition, and I need to reload. Once reloaded, I can begin firing again as though it was on cooldown. So could be effective is reloading just to get through and have another instant access to your laser weapon. Very nice. This applies to weapons like the laser cannon, which is quite a bit more powerful, lasts a lot longer than the support weapon, has a huge range, and is capable of obliterating quite a few things. As you can see, I overcooked it, and I need to reload this weapon. Alright, so that is something to note. Additionally, laser weapons do not suffer from the drop-off of most weapons. So you saw with the cookout that the bullet was affected by gravity and eventually fell down. This is going to go all the way to wherever you're pointing with absolutely no drop-off and additionally no recoil. So as you can see, I'm just aiming and it is going. That is the default behavior of all laser weapons currently. There may be updates in the future where that changes, but for now, there's no drop-off whatsoever for laser weapons. This includes the Quasar Cannon, which is the laser equivalent of a rocket launcher. It charges up for a bit like the Spartan laser of Halo 3. You would charge it like such, and then eventually you would release the charge and it would blow something up way over there. And it also has infinite ammo. Once you've expelled the charge from the charge up shot, it just takes a little bit to cool down and then you can fire it again. There is no overheating and there is no reloading. Charge, fire, and then you have to wait. So I also wanted to show what I meant with the backpack options. So this is the recoilless rifle, and I'll even maybe get to show off the drop-off rate. You can see that the rocket went pretty far, but then dropped eventually. Now I fired once, and now I have to reload, which is the major downside of the recoilless rifle, is the stationary reload that takes some amount of time. See, the drop off there was pretty intense. Those are two different things that affect the recoilless rifle as the stationary reload in that. Additionally, I did want to go over the difference between the expendable anti-tank and the recoilless rifle. So recoilless rifle has two different options. We have the HE and the HEAT. HEAT is it's going to fire and it's going to, I think, have a smaller explosive radius in favor of actually more damage. Now the HE, essentially it's the same missile getting fired, but instead of having just one little area that it shoots and hits and does massive damage, this is going to have a large explosive radius and do a decent amount of damage. And then the difference between this and the expendable anti-tank is this thing needs to reload, and the expendable anti-tank is more of a fire and forget. You just drop it on the ground immediately, and you can pick the second one off. So whenever you call one in, you get two. And yep, it just fires off, and that's it. Okay. So currently I have the ballistic shield backpack option, and what makes it unique is that it takes up your left hand. And most weapons, like this arc thrower for instance, are two-handed weapons, meaning the shield is unable to be used properly in front of you while you have this weapon out. Instead it sits on your back, which provides an immense amount of protection from shots coming in from behind you, which in itself can be very, very useful. But I have an SMG equipped as my primary weapon, and what makes SMGs generally very unique is that they have the one-handed property. And additionally, this knight that I have equipped has different flashlight options because I chose to equip the flashlight. So this is when the flashlight is on, you can see it's going to just go nuts everywhere I go. When I aim, it's going to point in that direction, but when I'm running, it's going to run around like a real flashlight if it was really attached, which I very much appreciate. You can absolutely turn this off, which could help with stealthing and all that. I also have a laser sight as well, which, although it doesn't help me much to have the laser sight because I kind of already know where I'm going to be shooting, it does help your teammates quite a bit by showing them where not to stand or suffer the consequences.
Fire in the hole! Get some! Get some!
You can see I'm perfectly capable of reloading even though I have a shield equipped. Taking up one of my hands, which is very nice. There are rumors going around that we will get dual wielding eventually, but for the time being, not a thing. The Knight has different fire modes, so semi, burst, and auto. And I do real quick want to show you what the auto flashlight will do. So as you see, when I'm running around and not doing much, the flashlight is off. But when I stop and I aim, you can see that I have a flashlight out. And additionally, the backpack affects you a little bit as well, this ballistic shield, because now when you scope, instead of having the actual scope of the weapon, you are getting the riot shield inside view, which is pretty cool, to be completely honest, but also has its own negatives, which is that the weapon is no longer lined up underneath you. It's going across your screen rather than pointed right where you're at, which this laser focus really helps with. Now if I turn the light off, you'll see that even better. You can see even though it's pointed there, the bullet went to the left. Now, that's a little bit better, but it's really to be trusted about that distance. So, things to think about. I'm going to go ahead and drop this ballistic, and you can see that my normal scope looks like this. So, it is purely because I have the ballistic shield out that it affects this. And additionally, I have a one-handed shotgun, which has two different options, the semi and the volley. There's 3 rounds, so fire 1, 2, 3, and I have to reload. This is the bushwhacker. But if I change it to the volley mode, it's going to fire all of my bullets all at once in a huge blast, which admittedly is not great against the little bugs because there's more of them than the volleys you can do. But as you all just witnessed, that bug completely got obliterated and doesn't exist anymore. So the volley is very powerful, but it essentially uses up all your bullets. Just some very interesting mechanics in this game for different weapons. I highly, highly recommend you guys try to unlock as many weapons as you can and experiment around them and find out for yourself which one you feel is your best loadout. And also keep in mind, each faction has a wide variety of enemies, and different weapons perform better or worse against specific enemy types. So keep that in mind as well. This game is quite a bit complicated, especially when we try to figure out loadouts, which is going to be the next episode. Alright guys, I will see you then. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of From ODST to Helldiver. If you found any of the information in this video useful, please go ahead and leave a like. And if you have any questions about anything, you want some clarification, or maybe you want to sync up in-game, go ahead and leave a comment down below, and maybe I can add you. We can get a couple of games together. And if you want to see a couple of more videos like this, why don't you go ahead and subscribe? That would really, really be appreciated. And hopefully this video gets you guys a little bit more prepared for when this inevitably drops on the Xbox. I hope everybody watching sees so many similarities between the Helldivers and the ODSTs. They're pretty much doing all of the same things. And I do find this game is, without a doubt, one of the greatest Halo games in the last 10 years. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time.